Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Jason.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Joel and I were kind of chuckling, getting ready to start the podcast because I told him what the topic Jen had come up with for us, how to avoid being debt resistant. We're both kind of scratching our heads like, okay, resistance, debt. Yeah, wait a minute. What did we say here? What is this? But, Jen brought it up because it's important to her, and that means it's also going to be important to other people. So let's see if we can take this kind of raveled up knot of a thing and unravel it and unknot it and see if we can turn it into something.
Well, I'm going to go with the basic assumption here that how do I not be in debt? We'll start with that.
I think that's a good starting point. Yeah.
As we know, resistance to anything attracts that. So the wording of how to be debt resistant is in a sense saying this is how you get deeper in debt.
Yeah, that's right.
But the good news is when you reword it, the concept of when you're worried about being in debt, when you're worried about finances, the debt is what you're attracting with the law of attraction. That's where your energy is focused. And any of the money issues, and I have been dirt poor, as you know. I've lost everything and built my way back. So when you are financially insecure and you have a lot of debt, or you're barely getting by, or you're just have no money, then there's really nothing else that will occupy your brain more than that. Because if you're not able to pay your electric bill, you have to worry about moving, you have to worry about being homeless, you have to, especially if you have kids, you can't take care of your kids. So I'm not making fun of the concept at all. Debt, it is a really scary thing. And having experienced it myself for years, even when I got into recovery from my addiction, and that's what was the worst part of my financial demise. But for a couple of years after I was in recovery, I was making enough to pay my stuff, but I never got a hit. I was able to, my old debt was building up. It was there. I wasn't making very much money. It was hard. I was working 4 or 5 jobs, and my focus was, I need more money. I am desperate for more money. So the law of attraction.
Very well, by the way, I am also, as you know, I went through my own thing that was similar. It was a different pattern, but it was a different storyline, but the pattern was very, very similar. And you're absolutely right. It's a miserable, totally miserable mindset to be in, because there doesn't seem to be any way out when you're in it.
Right. And so, getting into recovery was one thing for my gambling addiction. Learning how to manage money. And also, I was taught to manage money from a scarcity point. Like my mom used to say, you need to take 5 envelopes and put a little bit of money in each envelope, and you save up, and you do that. And those were strategies my grandmother used. Yeah. Interestingly enough, both my grandmother and mother struggled with the lack concept for a long, long time. And that's why. Sure. So when I got in recovery and started learning about the law of attraction is when my perspective of money changed. And when I really understood I was pushing financial abundance away by creating all my attention to the lack of money and the fear of what that would bring. First of all, I was miserable. It was depressing. It brought anxiety. And so my overall mood, it didn't matter what the topic was. Money was number one. It was just, how do I get money? How do I pay this off? I was paying off a bunch of restitution. And, in my mind, this wasn't accurate. I found out later. But if I didn't make these payments, I was going to go to jail in my mind. And so that was even more pressure to come up with that money. And the perceived lack of money kept driving that. So breaking that cycle for me took a long time, because that was pervasive for 15 or 20 years of my life. It was it. Yeah. And so, I'm at a point right now, I'm debt free. I use credit cards, but they're paid off every month. And I don't, I'm in the process of selling my home, and there was a slight teeny mortgage on that because the interest rate was like 2.9%. And I'm making 5% on my money, so it made no sense to pay that off. But as far as that, I carry no debt, and finances aren't a concern anymore. Now, I attribute that to just adjusting perspective, using the law of attraction. And I went from being super focused on the lack to super focused on the abundance. And I find it amazing that money doesn't occupy the top 100 things in my world. It's not a thought anymore. It's just there.
It's astonishing. I mean, anybody who's been through the debt thing, and I've also been through it. I'm almost completely emerged from it now. Like you mentioned a few times, the top credit score you can have is an 850. You've been at 850 for a while. Well, I just finally got over 800 for the first time.
Oh wow!
And I thought, oh my God. I never thought I was going to get there. I got there,
Yeah.
But when you're in the midst of it, that seems impossible. I remember when my score was down below 600, and I'm thinking, this is going to be the rest of my life. That's literally the way it felt. It was going to be. This was what my experience was going to be the rest of my life. So trying to change the mindset when you're in the midst of that, it's not just overwhelming. It literally seems impossible.
It really does, and it is impossible as long as you're doing that way of thinking. And it's
absolutely. Oh yeah.
And it's I was listening to a brief Instagram clip from, he's a financial advisor named Dave Ramsey.
Oh yeah.
And he is very no debt, but no abundance, no, just you save every penny, you eat beans and rice, and and it works for a lot of people, I guess, but it's the idea of, again, you're coming at it from a lack of money. He's not using that concept of the law of attraction at all. He's using some basic, let's reduce our lifestyle, let's reduce this, and you don't need a new car, you don't need this. Well, I want a new car every year. I'll move to wherever I want to move when I want to move. So the law of attraction, it's working for his people and what he's advising, but in a very limited lack-based mindset. They might be getting out of debt, but it is simply you're going to spend 30 years on his plan, and you'll be okay. But get financially well now.
Yeah, that is, it's kind of a game that you end up playing.
Yes.
As you try to navigate your way to how do I apply this concept? Because you get the concept pretty easily. I mean, yes. I remember when you and I were first discussing law of attraction. You were quite a ways along on the journey. I was in the early part of my journey, and I remember that the idea was very simple. The application of trying to get into that mindset every day, that's the part that seemed overwhelmingly difficult.
Yes.
The thing that I kept asking myself, and I think I even asked you too, when we were having our conversations here on the show, was, how do you do that day by day? How do you make that shift day by day? And for myself, what ultimately made the difference was realizing and recognizing that I didn't have to get it all done at once.
Yes.
Somehow I built up in my mind the idea I had to have perfect mindset. And if I didn't have perfect mindset, I would never get there.
Yes. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that again, the idea, because the law of attraction is so simple that we overthink the process of the law of attraction. I have to do this perfectly every day. The law of attraction is astonishingly easy to use it to your advantage. It operates all the time. You're going to have moments of negative thoughts. You're going to have, there's going to be moments of lack and thought for a moment. You don't have to do it perfectly. It's just the overwhelming propensity of your thoughts, or overwhelming thoughts, the majority of your thoughts need to be toward the abundance. That's what it needs to be. And you're going to have, anytime you get that unexpected tax bill, I shared with you last week that the tax bill was something I thought it was going to be, and I was going to additional gigantic amount of money, and then it turned out it was not. It was just a few more $1,000s, and so it was like, I laughed at that, because the first thing that happened when I thought I had to pay this gigantic amount of money on top of the gigantic amount of money I've already paid, I was astonished by my accountant's statement, and I misunderstood him. But I spent the entire day just working on my mindset. Look, I got the money, I can pay this, it's no big deal, I'll process it. But I knew not to even get near it until I got my mindset right. And ironically, it was later that the next day, I think, I found out that, wait a minute, I've already paid that gigantic amount of money, and I just had to pay a little bit more as a misunderstanding of communication. And so my mindset, I already know that my mindset is where I need to go immediately on these things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem. So for a lot of people, they think, well, I got to go do this and do this. And also, as you know, I'm an action-based law of attraction guy.
Right.
So with mindset, you also have to, I need to come up with ways to make more money. I need to produce more money, bring in more income, multiple streams of revenue, whatever you need to do. But you need to be willing to do that as well.
And I remember that for myself, you just talked very eloquently there about how you want to have a propensity of thoughts going in the right direction, not worrying about whether they're all going in the right direction. For myself, I realized pretty early on, even having propensity was probably more than I could do.
Yes.
And it took me a while to finally recognize that what was really important wasn't so much getting my thoughts in alignment all the time, or even most of the time, just doing it more often than I had been. So if I was thinking negatively 100 times a day and I could knock that down to 80 times a day, I was going to get some improvement. Now, would I get more improvement if I knocked it down to 10 times a day? Oh yeah, I get a lot more improvement. But just knocking it down that much would produce some improvement.
Well, you and I have always believed in the incremental change. And,
right.
So the idea, and I have seen particularly some of the younger people I work with that can make gigantic shifts much faster than us.
Yeah.
But we people, anybody 30 or older usually has enough built up negative brain cells built in about brain storage about things that you have a hard time believing it. So the changes are much more incremental.
Right.
But once I've seen, we had a guest on one of my clients, was it last week or the week before?
That was great.
Yeah, he's a young man. He's 22 when he started working with me. And he just like, okay, that makes sense. And he just shifted his mindset. Everything just happened like boom, so I've worked even young people than him I've worked with, and they do it even faster than he did because they can just instantly shift a perspective, where most of us have this dialogue that goes on and on and on about all this. So the subconscious brain is not easily changed. Your conscious brain, you can flip your opinion immediately. The subconscious brain says, no, this is stored permanently or semi-permanently, and I'm going to believe this until, but you have to keep changing slowly. Eventually it accepts a new reality. And that's the problem. It's a subconscious process that's slowing it down for most of us.
By the way, as a sort of an addendum to the story about Judson, I think I shared it with you, but we had an email from a listener who had heard Judson's story and wanted to be put in touch with him because they wanted to follow his example of starting an Amazon business. I remember we talked about that could possibly happen, and it happened.
It happened, sure.
Yeah, that was so cool. I love that.
Yes, yeah.
So thank you to that listener for making the request, and I'm sure Judson loved helping them out as well. But yeah, getting back to the whole thing about the incremental approach, not only is the incremental approach so important because it makes it possible to do what seems impossible.
Right.
But it's also a case that when you take the incremental approach, you start to see things shift. And you made reference to the importance of taking action. I think you described it in terms of trying to take action to earn more money or whatever it is. One of the things that I loved about what Mike Dooley used to say about this is that it almost didn't matter what the action was. You just had to take a step. Because even if you went in entirely the wrong direction, the universe would find a way to say, whoops, wrong direction, turn around 180 degrees, go the other way.
Absolutely. That's the premise that I go by. The action is the action is the conduit to changing the mindset. So even a wrong action, as Mike used to say, that's pre-crazy Mike.
We love you, Mike Dooley, no matter what.
I do. I love him, but he took a left turn on me. I'm still dealing with that. But it's this idea that you have the belief, the action is now engaging of the possibility. So when you're taking no action, and I want to reduce my debt, and I'm going to sit on my couch and just change my mindset, it doesn't mean with whatever money you have coming in, there couldn't be improvement. I'm not saying there couldn't be.
Sure.
But if you amplify it, it's not even the extra income that matters, if that makes any sense. It's adding to your belief and speeding up the process that makes the difference.
And not only are you adding to your belief, but just by taking some action of any kind, you're opening yourself up to receiving some kind of input that you would not normally have received. from
Yes.
some place, usually unexpected.
Yes. Yes. And so that and that's what is amazing about the process for us. So we being able to go now. There's going to be people listening, and I think I'll give some ideas of how they could possibly do it. They're going to still be stuck at what they're hearing me say and hearing you say is they're just talking about your mindset. I need something tangible to do. They're going to be frustrated because we're changing a mindset. I'm letting you know ahead of time. It is all about the mindset. But if you're looking for an actionable plan of doing it, there's several. There's several of the AIs today, Chat GPT or Grok or whatever the ones you're using, are really good. And I have a lot of clients that do that. That you could literally say, I have 22,000 in credit card debt. I make $52,000 a year. This is my expenses. Please print out a payment structure, repayment structure, whatever, and it will give you a really good one. So what you need to do is create a plan. And it isn't just about paying everything off quickly, because you get frustrated with that, but it's about incrementally paying down your debt while you do these other steps that we're talking about, and then you gain momentum with that. I had $250,000 in credit card debt that I owed when I got out of jail.
Yeah.
And I was a convicted felon and I had no job.
Right.
So I had the belief system that my credit is run, at most it could be of 7 years, but it was, how am I going to get over this? And there's no way out of this. And it started with a phone call from literally the day that I got out of jail. I answered the phone at the sober living home that I was living at the time. And it was a bank that I owed $5,000 to. And so I was just got home from jail. So what did I have to lose? So the guy, he said, Mr. Elston, we haven't been able to get hold of you for over a year. And I said, well, yeah, things have been rough. And he said, well, you owe us $5,976, something like that. And I said, I literally just got out of jail today. I have zero money. I have nothing in my pocket. I have no credit. My family has basically disowned me. So letting you know, I don't have any money whatsoever. And I said, but I really would like to pay this. I'm not trying, but my goal is to at least address it. I've ignored this for so long. And he said, well, when do you think you're going to be working? And I told him, I have a bunch of applications out to restaurants and I'm getting right. He said, well, when you do, he said, you call me and can you start paying me $25 a month? And I said, yeah, that'll be good. He said, so what I'm going to do is the moment you pay me $25, then we're going to start that process. I will split your entire debt in half and you will pay, and we'll come to a number. It'll be $2,500 and we will spread that over 3 or 4 years if we need to, but I'll give you a path to pay this back. Well, as that gained momentum, that I sort of liked the process. I started making a little more money. I had that one paid off in less than a year. And then I used that same strategy with the other credit card companies, and they all agreed to something. So I paid off. Now everything was a negotiated down amount, but I paid off all that debt. Everybody got their money. It was paid off in less than 3 years.
Wow. And, which was not at all what your subconscious mind said was possible. Right.
So then that gave me hope. And then I started noticing they would send, every time you do one of these agreements, they would send you your credit score. My credit score at one point was 368.
Wow.
And you get, for having your right address, you get 365, I think. So, and they, basically I would get that, and I saw it go to 375, 390, 400. When it hit 500, I thought it, and then by the time it was done, I was at 600 credit score, which isn't great, but it worked from where I was. It was, and then I
made an improvement. Yeah.
But my mindset started to believe and change. And then I started, instead of focusing on the lack, I was more focused on, let's get this stuff paid off. I can do this. And it was amazing in less than 3 years to have all of that settled. And it really, I did it for pennies on the dollar. So I'm not trying to claim I paid off, $250,000, but it was what they agreed upon. And I paid off about $26,000 spread out over 3 years. And my credit score, when I was done with that, touched 700.
Wow.
So that was good. And it helped a lot.
Yeah.
So having a tangible plan of action combined with the mindset change is the formula that you're seeking.
Exactly. Yeah. The original topic that Jen came up for us was, as we talked before, it was to have a debt shield. But really, what we're talking about here is not a debt shield. What we're really talking about is a mind shield against our debt-ridden subconscious mind.
Your lack-based mind. The category of lack covers a lot of things, but for me, the reason I get into law of attraction, I have theories. Number one seems to be money. A close number two is relationships.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Third one can be health.
Health.
Right. And so most people get launched into one of those categories to begin with, and mine was hands down money. I could care less about relationships, and my health didn't concern me at all. So it was, as that would go, I was able to then understand my soul intensity was built on the lack, and that was beating my head up against the wall. That's what that was. And so the debt shield that you talked about is more of a lack shield, a shield from the lack.
Yes. I like the way that you described that, because it reminds me also of what I went through. And what I went through was a journey like yours. But as you were describing that, you achieved a certain degree of success and it started to change your perception about what was going on. I had the same kind of thing happen. And it's really an interesting thing that occurs when you have that occur, when you've done something, you've taken some kind of steps, and it has produced some result. You're not there yet, you're not where you want to get to, but you've achieved some result. There's something about that experience that helps you make the shift easier.
Yes.
Like from that point on, I was still resistant. I still didn't completely believe in all this stuff, but I believed more. You know what I mean?
I do. You believed a lot more. And then the more you believe, the more you get feedback to support believing. If that makes any sense. That came out crazy, but
no, that's exactly right though. That's precisely the way it is.
Yeah.
You get that your belief creates more experience that reinforces the belief.
Yes. And that's sort of the cycle of everything else. That's the cycle of life, so to speak, when it comes to changing. The more you believe it, the more your reality starts to adapt to your perspective. Your perspective changes, reality adapts to that.
Now, for somebody who has never experienced any kind of prosperity, someone who has lived in a society where there's nothing in your direct experience that is prosperous,
right?
Nothing in your family, your friends, whatever. Everything that you know is poverty. Well, in those circumstances, you in one sense, you have the hardest world, because you're trying to imagine something that seems impossible because you have no experience with it. On the other hand, if you come from that kind of a background and you have some degree of success coming despite that background, you get something that nobody in your circle has. You get a form of feedback, a form of input from reality that the other people have never experienced. And that can be, well, first of all, it's reinforcing. It's like, oh my goodness, this can actually work. It can also be a fear factor, like that somehow the other shoe's going to drop. Somehow this has got to fall apart. I mean, because my life doesn't work this way. So it can work either way.
Right.
And the big challenge is, how do we keep ourselves on the positive track, even against this idea that, no good deed goes unpunished.
Correct. Yeah. Well, it's as you're saying there, everybody's individual circumstance is, going to be unique. Sometimes the worst circumstances are the easiest to come, as that's, because incremental progress is easier.
Right.
There could be changes that it's like if I have a client that was 304 pounds and he wanted to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
And, it doesn't take much of a beginning to get him moving more, cutting out some sugar, drinking some water instead of soda. Well, within about a week, he dropped like 9 pounds.
Wow.
Well, that's not going to be the consistent rate forever, but that 9 pounds was a lot of fluid. But that mindset that I lost 9 pounds in a week changed his belief that he couldn't lose the weight.
Right.
So I like to use that. So he was in a very dire situation health-wise, 300 and whatever pounds.
Sure.
Loses 9 pounds, gets under 300. Now his shift on that changed. It's a belief that it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So he then worked harder, ate more healthy,
mm-hmm.
cut out sodas entirely. And again, he started that process over time. And over a year, he lost 100 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was, and he's fantastic. He's in the gym now. He's looks fantastic. He all this stuff has, but it started with that early time. So sometimes when you can make the worst circumstance can show the biggest progress in that first step, you believe it more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what we're pointing to is the fact that whatever the new experience is, not only can you interpret that experience a number of different ways, but you have a choice. Your choice about how you're going to experience it is going to direct you further. So in the case of your associate who needed to lose a whole bunch of weight, in his case, he decided that the experience of losing just 9 pounds out of 100 that he needed to learn, or 100 that he needed to lose, rather, just losing 9 pounds, I mean, that wasn't anywhere near what he needed to actually get to. But he decided that that was a great thing.
It was.
He decided that was a huge step forward. That was proof that he could do it. Now, he could have easily turned that the other way around, but he decided to make the choice that said, I believe this is actually evidence that it's working.
And that's why I like to, in the beginning when I was working with, I made a huge deal out of that 9 pounds. Pointed out that, so there's proof in that now that your subconscious brain can start to change its perspective.
Right.
Then when he lost another 5 pounds and another 7 pounds, then it became reality. Yes. And then not only did it become reality in the body, the metabolism increased. I believe that the body expected to lose weight, but he's also doing a matching action of increasing his calorie output while reducing the excess calorie intake. So the system was optimized by all three. There's the physical actions, and then there's the mental actions of, the law of attraction. That's when they mold together to make everything sort of supercharged. And it's when when you live a lifetime of poverty and you live a lifetime of debt or a lifetime of illness, whatever it is, the occupying portions of the brain that believe that to be a reality are where we have to focus on. And everybody, the reason I like to give tangible actions is a lot of people have a hard time saying my mindset changing alone you're giving me ridiculous advice.
Right.
So the matching actions, I use this, it powers up the law of attraction.
In that vein, then the challenge is twofold. It's you as the coach, you have the challenge of helping the person to shift the mindset. The person himself also has the challenge of shifting the mindset. And correct me if I'm wrong, there's like a confluence that happens there.
Yes.
Like you're reinforcing each other in a sense.
Yeah, and that's sort of the level of coaching is, with this case, I was meeting with this gentleman twice a week. A lot of times I meet with them once a week. I have met with somebody every day for a while, just depending on where they're at. But the point of meeting, the frequency of meeting is I could say, do these same things and check back in a month.
Right.
His mind would not constantly be updated. So, it's like he calls it the booster shot. He said, I lost the 9 pounds. We had a great session. I believe it. I'm eating better. And then after about 4 days, my mind starts to go back to I'm fat, I'm this, or I'm that. And that isn't that much weight. And then I've had another meeting, then I'm re-energized. So we are reprogramming the subconscious brain to accept these things. The subconscious brain is trying to hold on to the faulty previous information.
Right. So what we're basically saying is that it's messy.
Very messy.
It's a messy process. It's not clean. It's not linear. It's not just start here and go up to there. It's go up and down, left and right, and all over the place, and all the way back on the road again. And it's just this wild, crazy ride.
It is. It really is.
And because it's so crazy, that I think is also one of the reasons why we end up doubting.
Yes.
right?
But I was sharing a story with you before the show about a lot of stuff I had to do this morning, and
Yeah.
I had built up Monday morning as I got to go to battle with insurance companies and some other things, and and I that started on Saturday. It built up on Sunday, and I got Monday morning ready to go. Sat down at my little desk here, and begin to get everything set, ready to attack.
Mm-hmm.
And what I set aside 2 hours to fix, 2 or 3 hours to set up deal with these things. 7 minutes, 8 minutes, I was done with all of them. I was prepared, because every morning I adjust my mindset. So before I did this, I said I can't go into it with the expectation of battle, because I'm going to get a battle. If I go in with the expectation this time, and the battle was based on previous experiences I had, so I'm filling in the blanks with that.
Sure.
But got some really good customer service people. They understood the problem. They helped me, and it was it was shockingly easy today. And that was because I adjusted that mindset. Where over the weekend, my mindset sort of backtracked. It went into the old, you got to go to the old days. You got to get, and that's not usually very efficient.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But it does illustrate very nicely what we're talking about, that
Yes.
This is not a linear process, that you go through ups and downs and lefts and rights, and sometimes it seems to work nicely and other times it doesn't seem to work so nicely, and you're just trying to deal with all of that.
Absolutely.
And the reason that's important is that I think that the original concept that Jen wanted us to talk about, that debt shield as she described it, what we're really talking about isn't a debt shield. What we're talking about is a shield that we're building in our mind against our disbelief.
That's fair. Yeah.
That's really what it is. I mean, we really don't actually need a protection against debt. We really don't actually need a protection against poverty. What we need is a protection against our mind that says, you will always be in debt. You will always be in poverty.
Well, it's all of that. I mean, Abraham Hicks touches on that in I forget which one of the books, about saying that basically there isn't, you don't need to, she used the description of, turning on the light in a room, the darkness, and turning on the light in the room as an example of, it isn't that we had, darkness was a thing but it was more of a lack of light than the darkness, and it's that same way of thinking that, wait a minute, let me reframe this. Now, having spent years doing this, and when people hear me talk now, because I am so confident in the process, they think, well, he doesn't understand. He doesn't know. So I want to be really clear. What I'm suggesting it took me a long time to get here. So and that was because of my disbelief. I had to keep it took as long as I believed it would take, if that makes any sense. So
it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
But I'm not trying to make everybody think it's snap your fingers and this goes away. It's possible, but the level of belief of that goes against all the years of programming the other way. So the when you speak, I have a belief that Bob Proctor, when I met with Bob Proctor years ago, we were going over this concept, and he said, Joel, if you took all the money in the United States, and he had the number, he said, if we all ended up with about $5 million, and every man, woman, and child has $5 million, he said, in less than 2 years, the rich people will be rich again, and the poor people are going to be poor again. Because it was never about money, it was about mindset.
Right. That's one of those lessons. When you explain it that clearly, it seems so simple, but you almost miss just how brilliant the insight is.
Yes. And the example of that plays out every week or several times a year. I don't know how often these things are hit, but you take someone who has a big win on the lottery, say a couple wins $50 million on the lotto.
Right.
They have always had struggle with money. The statistics are shockingly high of those people. They just lose their money. It's gone. It's gone after 4 or 5 years at most. And because first of all, when you say you win $50 million, you don't win $50 million. You after tax and everything, you're coming out with probably closer to 20.
Right.
So that should be plenty. But when you have lived with lack so long, and I work with a lot of athletes that came from very humble beginnings from the inner city. And when they get a signing bonus of $5 or $10 or whatever that number is, they assume that this is money coming from ever. I can buy whatever I want to buy. And they quickly realize that a $5 million signing bonus, after you pay your agent, after you do all these things, and you pay your taxes on it, turns out to be about $2 million. And $2 million, if you get never had any money, sounds like a gigantic amount of money. And it's a lot of money, but it's not enough to go buy Bugattis or Lamborghinis and do spend $10,000 a night at a club. That's not what that is. So they have to adjust the mindset as well, because they've been given an abundance. They on some level just don't believe it. It's like, wow, I will have this forever, or they believe that somehow I'm not entitled to this. But whatever the negative thinking that's usually attached to it is what causes that to sort of go away and lose their money. Baseball players years ago, I forget the name of the player, one of the most successful players at the time, seems like it was in the 80s. He bought 53 cars and went bankrupt. And everybody was enthralled, just shocked that somebody who made $10 million at that time was a ton of money, made $10 million a year, could be bankrupt. And so much of it is this. The same goes with our health, the relationship. This all goes across the board. Whatever you're believing about relationships, if you're struggling with the relationships, it's your belief system that's off. If you're struggling with your health, I understand it's more complicated with health, but at the end of the day, your mindset can support an unhealthy body and it lives to that expectations, or you can support a healthy body and your body will start healing based on your belief system. And that's been proven. That's not me just saying that. And there are people who are going to say that's a bunch of BS and blah blah blah. And I understand that, but the reality that I've seen happen for me in all areas of my life, my perspective, it dictates my reality. And once I control that perspective, I'm in perfect health. I'm terribly, bizarrely unlucky, and I believe that. So that's why my relationships are all over the place. And I have a ton of money. So all my systems are matching what I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What we're really saying here, I believe, is that beliefs are something that we need to work on for a lifetime. We often come into these situations, like you said, because we have a money issue, or we have a relationship issue, or we have a health issue, or maybe it has issues that have to do with our job, our career. I mean, there are lots of different kinds of issues that can drive us to it. But ultimately, at the core, is the realization, the discovery that what we're learning is not a quick fix.
Right.
What we're learning is something that becomes a lifelong learning experience. And you mentioned, for instance, health. And I think you specifically were referring to health in later years. Well, that's kind of where I am right now. And I have been experimenting with what can I do with my mindset to affect my results, my health results. And to my astonishment, I can actually do a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've already proved it to myself. 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with an Achilles issue. And I went to a year worth of physical therapy. My therapist kept assuring me I could overcome it, but I was having a lot of trouble. Even after I finished the therapy, I still wasn't 100%. But I kept believing that I could be 100%. I kept believing that I could return to the form that I used to have. The form I used to have, I would walk 5 miles a day and think nothing of it. It got to the point when I was in the height of pain with the Achilles issue that I couldn't even walk a mile without being in severe pain. And given where I am in the era of my life, I'm in my late 60s. Well, according to the way that society tends to believe and value this kind of thing, I'm already on the downhill slope. There really wasn't a whole lot of hope for me, That's what the traditional mindset is. Well, I decided that was not an acceptable mindset. I decided that somehow I was going to change. I had no idea how, other than to just keep going to therapy and do what my therapist kept telling me to do. I had an amazing thing happen this past week, Joel. For the first time in 2 years, I walked 5 miles without pain.
Nice. See, you got there.
I got there. And I did it at an age when you're not supposed to be able to make improvements like that.
I agree. I have a similar things going on in my world. 63-year-old men are not supposed to be able to deadlift 500 pounds.
Yeah, right. Like, what's wrong with you? Who do you think you are anyway?
Yeah, I don't agree with that assessment. So, yeah, but like in one of my belief systems too, that supports it, not just with abundance and everything else, but sort of the overall concept. I believe my mind is far sharper today in my 60s than it was in my 30s,
Totally
because
agree. Yeah.
my ADHD was I didn't learn how to handle that at the time. The maturing brain slows down, not in a functioning way, but it is more efficient. It doesn't overreact to things. The fact that I don't operate in any area of lack. So I don't have a lot of anxiety about what could go wrong. I don't operate on that premise usually. It's that. So my version of aging is a different story than most of what doctors will tell you. My story of aging is an increasing brain capacity.
Yes.
It is, I always changing my workout routines. I've been doing different type things. So I mean, I still make increases in my weights now. Even that make a lot of sense. I'm still increasing
I
weight.
don't quite understand that one, but whatever.
Yeah, and so because I don't accept it the other way, and so do I will keep doing this now. I know logically that this physical body at some point will end. I understand that.
Sure.
But I will extend the healthy, like I could be 100 years old in my mind, feeling this way, thinking this way, and lifting the way I do, and continue. I believe that.
I believe it too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I give it that energy. And, my doctor last visit, the one that used to tell me not to lift, that tells me to don't stop now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And he basically said, looking at your blood work and all of your reflex, your muscle density, your bone density, he said, the only way you're likely to die is you doing something stupid, which is very likely. That's what he told me.
Did you really say that?
Yeah, he really did.
That's wild. I can tell you another story. It just occurred to me. I was told by my optometrist about, when was it? About 20 years ago, that I had macular degeneration and that I would be blind within 20 years. And there was nothing they could do about it. I mean, there's certain things you could do. You could take medications, you could do vitamins, certain things to kind of slow it down, but there was nothing you could do that would stop it. Nothing you could do that could reverse it. That's what you were facing up to. And I just refused to buy into it. I refused to believe it. I took the vitamins and I started doing whatever I could to kind of shift the mindset that was going to happen. Well, every time I went back for an appointment, they kept verifying, yep, you have what they call the wet version of macular degeneration. It's the worst one, not the dry one. The dry one's the better one. You don't have the better one. You have the worst one. That's the path that you're on. 3 years ago, I went in for an appointment and my optometrist I had a new optometrist at that point. She denied that I ever had macular degeneration.
Yeah.
There's no trace of macular. I'm pretty sure that the record was wrong. You never. Now they've been telling me this for like years, right? And all of a sudden, the whole thing got reversed.
Yes.
And I changed optometrist again because she went out of business, and I ended up going with another one. The one that I went to most recently, I told him the story, and he kind of looked at me and he said, "It's not like I've never heard this before."
Yeah.
So I can't buy into it, but I can't deny it. There's something going on there. And then he said, "Now I just did your eye exam. Your eyes are good, but you are showing early signs of cataracts. So what you need to understand is at some point you're probably going to have cataract surgery. Now, right now it's very early stage. You don't have to worry about it, but you need to prepare for that." And my instant reply to him was, "No, that's not what's going to happen. I don't know how, but somehow I'm going to get rid of the cataracts the way I got rid of the macular degeneration." And you know what he said? He said, "I wouldn't rule that out."
I like that doctor. If I lived up there, I would immediately go see him.
Right.
That's my kind of thinking.
Yeah.
And but that's it in every category. So the belief system, the body, any medicine that man has ever made the body is capable of making that exact same medicine without any artificial need to combine them. The body has all access to all the chemicals to do what it needs to do.
And without the side effects, interestingly enough.
So because it's done internally.
Right.
So, you know, the idea that I have a either EKG or EK, I get the two mixed up, but I have this device that I can put probes all over, you know, my body and it tests my sweat, my heartbeat, and I can lower, like if I'm in a really stressful situation, the tone is really high. It's like a very high tone. I just sit there, close my eyes, and I can drop all those things down. I can drop my blood pressure. I can take it down to just that bare minimal. And that is a tool. The reason the machine is almost irrelevant, but I use the machine to demonstrate that I can do it. And then I can do it. I don't need the machine to do it. It's just measuring. The machine is just a way to measure what I'm doing.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a device you can get from the Heart Math Institute that it's kind of a simplified version of what you're talking about, a very complex and highly integrative piece. But the one that you get, Heart Math, is a very simplified piece. It basically checks your what they call your what they call the thing. There's a medical term they have for it. But it does the same kind of thing. It's a way of training your mind to calm your mind and get your mind into a healing mode. And it has like a series of graphics that shows you whether or not you're getting there. And it turns out you really can use a device like that to train your mind to be relaxed, to focus better, to be confident, to start to believe that you have the power to shift things with how you give your attention just by playing with this device.
That's it.
It's crazy.
But the doctors described that. So I bought a medical grade one. It was very expensive, and you know I didn't care. I wanted it, and so when I was describing what I'm doing, he said that's a sophisticated diagnostic piece of equipment.
Right.
And I go, no, it's a sophisticated trainer for my central nervous system. He goes, you're not using it the right way. I go, you're not using it the right way. He said, that's not what it's for. And I go, no, that's what it should be. If you did that, instead of using it just to say, oh, you need medicine for this. Have you ever thought about giving it a try to see if they can calm it themselves?
Wow.
And then when they believe it, then it uses a tool as a trainer. And then you don't need the machine to train. I've used it on multiple clients over the years, and they all swear by it. It's just once you realize that you can lower your blood pressure, you can lower your breathing, you can reduce all the sort of stress hormones from coming out by the techniques of breathing and focus and lowering all that with your attention to calmness. You know, you can do that in any situation.
One of my favorite things to do is I call it my healing technique, and essentially it's what you and I would call raising the vibration and then visualizing. You know, so you raise the vibration first, you visualize second, and you do it in that order so that you're always visualizing from a high vibrational perspective.
Yes,
very simple technique, and I've used that a number of times. I actually have used that with the eye healing that I was doing. I explained it to somebody who I've been associated with in the last couple months, who is dealing with a heart issue that emerged from medication she was put on. In other words, the medication caused a heart issue. And she's in the midst of dealing with that. She may have to get a surgery, all this kind of thing. And so I taught her that technique. I said, use that technique whenever you are A, feeling anxious about what's going on, or B, you want to do something to try to heal yourself. And just do it over and over again. She called me the very next day, and said, I tried that last night and I got amazing results out of it. Now, she's not claiming that her heart situation is gone. That's not what she's saying at all. What she's saying is that just by using that technique, she felt so much better. She felt physically better. That's the secret.
Yeah. And then enough of that technique, at some point, I predict that the medical test will reveal it has helped.
I believe it too. Yes. Yeah.
But it's the beginning is feeling better, but it circles back to any tool I can use to help people believe, whether it's some measuring device or not that we really need it, but I want to be able to show tangible events. Like when the man lost 9 pounds in a week, you know, he lost 9 pounds. I know that was water weight. I know that was,
Sure.
all these things that goes on. I just said, oh my gosh, he likes 9. We just bit into that. So that's what launched his belief into working. It was that the initial 9 pounds. And he never backed off of that.
And that makes all the difference. That makes
Yes.
all of the difference, right?
Yes.
There. So going back to the original topic, the debt shield topic, which is really a shield against lack, the belief in lack. If we're applying that to the financial world, then now we understand, well, the trick isn't so much to just re-record the subconscious mind. The trick is to re-record the subconscious mind from a very positive, high perspective.
Yes.
We get the same kinds of positive results there as we get with the physical world or the relationship world or whatever, simply by making sure that any visualizing we're doing, any mental activity we're doing to try to shift, if we're doing it when we're feeling our best, whatever the best is that we can feel at that particular moment in time, that's when we're going to get the most results. That's when we're going to get the greatest amount of growth. That's when we're going to make the most progress.
And that's, you can use that. We can merge techniques as well, using, we talked a few weeks ago about the emotional guidance scale. This is a technique that can be implemented here of identifying where you're at, trying to go up the emotional guidance scale before you start working on some of this stuff. And that's a really good tool. Like, just move up the emotional guidance scale, whatever your emotional guidance scale is.
It almost doesn't even matter where you are on the scale.
It has 0 point. You can use Abraham Hicks's 38,000 steps, or you could use your 2 steps, or you could use my 10 steps. So,
and it doesn't matter how low you are on the scale. I mean, you can be depressed, you can be angry, frustrated, bitter. It almost doesn't matter where you are. You just have to use it to go a little higher than where you are.
Yeah. Then when you understand that you went a little higher and you feel
that's also a good thing. Yes.
but it's all part of that. So when anything that you and I usually are talking about is, and where people get a lot of doubts early is, I've been thinking positively, Joel, and it hasn't worked. I've been thinking, you have been desperate about money, and you have lived with lack, and I'm not making fun or criticizing, because I did the same thing. That's all you know how to do. All you're thinking about is having no money. So no technique is going to work until you change that.
Right.
No technique.
Right.
You will not override that system.
But once you do start making even the smallest shift, that's the part that blows my mind. It doesn't have to be a big shift all at once. I mean, it's great if you can do that. If you can make it a big shift like the young people do, well, have at it, because you're going to get really big results that way.
Yeah. Take a 12-year-old.
But you don't have to make big results. You can still be making small results and still make progress.
Yeah, a 12-year-old can shift to a different human the next day. Seriously, I've seen it happen. Just boom. It's like, wow. If I could figure out how to give that formula to adults, we would be really good here.
No kidding. Yeah. Well, actually, I had a guest on earlier. He's a sort of a financial planner for people working in the government. And I asked him the question, if you could go back and tell your 25-year-old self something that you thought would be valuable, do you think your 25-year-old self would listen? And he said, probably not.
Oh, no. I had to learn it the hard way person. And, and more of a journey-based mindset of and I've shared, this is not just a line because I do this for a living. If I could go back and change it all, other than my son passing away, I would leave it all in place. It was all necessary. It's been an amazing journey. It's not over, obviously. I'm not giving a farewell sign here, but I'm just simply saying I wouldn't go back. It's been such an incredible journey. I don't want to go do it again. I don't have the energy to do it again, but just to have lived through that, the ups and downs and the eventual awakening, the way I got to it is one of the most amazing feelings of all time, just getting it at this point. That's why, I wouldn't go back. If magically I could, absolutely not.
I remember the first time you told me that. This was years ago on the podcast, like in year 3 or something like that. You told me exactly that you never wanted to trade in that experience. You never want to live it again, but you never wanted to trade in that experience. And I remember my reaction then vividly, like, this man's crazy. I love him to death, but he's absolutely insane. Now I totally get it. Now I totally agree with you. But the first time I heard it, I thought that was just stupid.
Well, I mean, let's not sleep on the fact I am insane. So let's start with that. I have no problem with that label.
But my point is, I think that's a fairly common response. The first time we hear this stuff, it's like, yeah, okay. So what other snake oil are you selling today?
Well, but what I realized today, everything I have today, I went and got. I earned it. I manifested into my life. I worked for it. I became me. This ultimate version of me, and I still have room to grow. When I say ultimate, I'm still working. Obviously, still working on growing. But the beliefs that I have now would not have come without the path I had to take, the struggle, the pulling myself up, knocking myself back down, the tribulations, the trials, all that. It built my resilience. It made me far stronger than I ever realized I would. Not just physically, it mentally made. I always viewed myself as a weak person mentally for so long, and I don't view myself that way anymore at all.
Interesting that you say that, because I was having a conversation with a friend recently, very recently, in which we both agreed that just about everybody has that. Just about everybody has that strong level of doubt. We don't admit it. People don't want to admit that they're feeling that. But you know what? I think everybody goes through that.
Sure.
I don't think there's anybody who doesn't. Is there anybody who ever? I mean, you're a coach and you're a former therapist. You've dealt with a lot of people dealing with issues like this. Have you ever encountered somebody who didn't go through that kind of a phase?
No.
So literally, we're all doing it.
Yeah,
we're all experiencing that.
My fundamental beliefs are: you're placed on this planet without an instruction book, and God knows what's going to happen. There's going to be some crazy stuff, and it's your job to navigate. That's sort of the point of all this. It's your job to overcome. So, I now view it as sort of an amusement park. If you come down here and you have all this stuff to deal with, and it's almost like one of those. This is a very advanced escape room kind of thing, and but it's that process. So many people get stuck on, where am I going to be? I want to, when I get here, that I'll be all right. And they totally dismiss the process of getting there. The fun and the excitement and the tragedy and all that stuff, it flavors it. It's what the point is. The journey is the point. The destination it could be a nice byproduct, but the journey is where you thrive and you grow and you fall and you fail and you learn from that, and your beliefs are forged. The journey is the point. And I think I have had, there's a lot of people that have much more, horrible stories than mine, but I really believe this has been a fascinating, and when I tell the story, if I didn't live it, it's almost not believable.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Because the fact is that it does seem ridiculous to have to live through all this. And yet, when you're in the middle of it, I don't know how you experience it. The way I experience it is like this: like, what just happened? What just happened? What the hell was that? What just happened? That's literally the way my life seems to go. It's like, wait a minute, what just happened? I don't understand. It happened. Something else happened, and then something else. What? I can't even make sense out of it. So I don't know that I can say that I enjoy it yet. I'm getting closer to enjoying it.
Yeah.
But I am certainly in the stage of being blown away by it.
Well, and I've also been, I get to a place, and I live my life has all kind of plot twists all the time. I mean, it's all over the place, and
Right.
I love that. It doesn't bother me anymore. It's something that I'm just sort of amused by it.
Yeah.
And it's
there's a lot of head scratching that goes on.
yeah. I mean, I see stuff that is almost unbelievable. You'll process stuff and you'll hear stuff, but I have just come to say, I have been given a view of life that few people have, from one extreme to another, going down this crazy river. And, I don't know how it ends. I'm looking forward, and I mean, I hope it's epic. And, I hope it's, something absolutely crazy and bizarre. That's what I'm counting on. It's just it should end that way if I'm thinking about it. But I'm not focused on the end. As long as this is going, my foot remains on the gas. I do what I do. I still have the life that, I'm grateful for what I have. And do I do it perfectly? Absolutely not. Like this weekend, I was mentioning, I let some things build up, and I awfulized it by Sunday night, and I had to adjust my mindset this morning, but everything worked out perfectly, which reinforces the process, which makes it even more silly every time I get upset about something.
And there's how the reinforcement works. You just said it beautifully. That's how the reprogramming works. It happens through that reinforce for a whole series of experiences.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, I hope Jen liked it. I think listeners liked it. I think we did a pretty good job. We've touched on this one before, but we did a good job with this one. So thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you again next week with whatever the topic is going to be. We'll figure that out. I don't know what it's going to be. In the meantime, thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere, and we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.